like it. We're gonna trade a couple of hosta for a couple of dozen eggs. Here they are. I bet the goats are gonna love that.
Oh my gosh, this gomphrena. Doesn't this look spectacular? I am obsessed with this annual. Have you ever kept plants in your garden just because you didn't have the heart to rip them out? Well, we're not doing that anymore. And today I'm giving myself permission to change out some plants. Hi, it's Steph. And like many gardeners, I have planted tons of plants in my garden that I had purchased and had the work to plant and never had the heart to move them out because I no longer liked them. Well, that changes today. I have been going through the process of editing my garden, and I am going to actually take out some plants that I no longer like and replace them with ones that I will like a whole lot more, including these here on the wall. So if there are plants in your garden that you no longer like, we're not talking about just switching things around. We're talking about getting them out of there and replacing them with something new. In a recent video where I explained some of my fall plans, I had talked about how this might be a little controversial, but I was planning on removing all of the hosta in my garden to replace them with something I liked more. And I'm happy to report that most of you agreed with me, which leads me to believe that most of us do have plants in our garden that we're not happy about, but we just haven't gotten around to removing them for whatever reason. So today I'm going to go ahead and dig up these 8 hostas that are around this tree here, and I'm going to start by replacing them with some of this really beautiful Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia. I have one of these in my garden that I planted last season that looks absolutely gorgeous. It has pretty much tripled in size since I planted it in one season. And I really love this variegated foliage with shades of chartreuse yellow and green. And in the winter, this even stays evergreen. It gets a really pretty bronze coloring, and then it blooms with some really unique chartreuse green blooms in the spring. So I think this will look much prettier here, and I'm going to be much happier with them. So the hosta are out of here.
So we're in the Japanese maple garden, and Steph just ripped out all the hosta from this area. We had some neighbors down the street who recently got some chickens and goats, and she said that they really like hosta. So I think she's gonna just feed it to the goats. They really like it. We're gonna trade a couple of hosta for a couple of dozen eggs. Here they are. I bet the goats are gonna love that.
Leave George with the camera while I go to the bathroom, and you never know what he'll say. While the goats and the chickens are very cute, they are not getting my hosta. These are actually going to my mom's garden. I've already promised them to her. And they were pretty rooted in, so they were kind of tough to dig out. It probably would have been easier to pull them out in the spring, but I wanted them out of there, and I want to get my Euphorbia planted. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll show you what things look like. And here's what I've decided on for placement of this Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia. Originally, I had hostas all the way around, but what I've done here is I've created a drift of these 3 Euphorbia because I think it'll look really nice when you come down this path. I have this yellow Coneflower, or Japanese forest grass areola, that is in yellow. Then I have this dark foliage of the Chinese fringe flower. I have a drift of some Japanese painted ferns, which I've had to cover with some Dollar Tree waste baskets, also known as garden cloches, because the bunnies are chomping on them this year. So they're starting to recover a little. But I have a drift here of the ferns, and I think right behind would look really nice to have this group of these 3 Euphorbia. So that's what I'm going to do. And then over to the side here, I talked about this earlier this season. I have a peony here. This is an Ito peony, and I'm going to actually remove it and replace it with a gold foliage bleeding heart, which will look really beautiful in the spring and offer me some yellow in this area. And I have a dwarf oak leaf hydrangea right here called Little Honey that is still quite small, and it has been really slow growing, and I've also had deer damage on it, so it's having a hard time. But once this actually grows, it will fill out this space with yellow foliage, and this gets to be 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. So I think all in all, that placement is going to work well. And another swap that I'm making is right here on the south side of our house by our AC units. I'm actually going to be replacing this euonymus that I have planted here because I hate it. It has been here in my garden for several years. This is actually their second location. And it turns out that the deer like this euonymus a whole lot more than I do because they keep chomping on it. Initially, I thought that this would be a great option for this area because they're low growing and kind of horizontal growing. So that way they wouldn't interfere with covering up my AC units. But I no longer like them, so they are out of here, and I'm going to replace them with these beautiful weigela. These are a very compact weigela by Proven Winners. It is called the Midnight Sun, and you can see it has this really gorgeous kind of wine-colored foliage. It will bloom in the spring with little pink bell-shaped flowers that the pollinators love, and these only get to be about 18 inches in height and in width. So I think they'll be a great option for this area. They are hardy in zones 4 through 8, and they love full sun, which is great because this is the south side of my house and it gets full sun all day long. You have to remember that. All right, let's see if I can pull it out. Here we go. Oh yeah. Bye-bye.
Wow. That had a pretty big root system.
I know. Well, it's
Kinda
been kicking around for like 10, 15 years. No, not 15, but at least 10 years now. We've had it for a while.
What are you doing? You're taking a shower outside?
Again, you always catch me taking showers outside. My feet got really muddy. I'm just cleaning things up before I go back to getting muddy again. Actually feels nice because I'm kind of hot, so the cool water on your feet cools you right off. The next change I'm making is right here in my main walkway garden. And in this border, I had some Echinacea purpurea. Actually, I had some white swan echinacea that I had started from seed several years ago that was supposed to be white. And they were white for the first 3 years that they bloomed. And then this year in season 4, I had a mix of purple and white, which I talked about during some of my garden tours this summer. And I didn't like the mix of the purple and the white because I had grown a white coneflower to plant here along my walkway. So I have removed those from this area. I had a garden club meeting the next morning, so I was able to bring those plants that I dug up and brought them to garden club, and thankfully all 8 of the pots that I brought got taken home to a new garden. So I was really excited about that, and I found a new coneflower that was on my wish list for the past 2 seasons, and I came across that at a nursery recently, and that is what I'm going to replace those coneflowers with here in this border. So let me show those to you. And here they are. These are pretty Parasols coneflowers. And these have been on my wish list for 2 seasons now. And I finally found them at a local nursery. And the best part, they were 25% off at an end of season sale. So here's the variety. Pretty Parasols coneflower echinacea, and they like sun in a well-draining soil. All coneflowers do, and they get to be 30 to 36 inches in height, which I think will be perfect for that second row of the border. And they're hardy in zones 4 through 9. So I am going to go ahead and plant these coneflowers in that front walkway. And what I love about them is that they have kind of like these weepy petals that have kind of a downward habit. and they're both pink and white, which this pink I think will really coordinate well with my pink knockout roses that I have in the front walkway, and I'm still getting some of my white coneflower. So I really love this one, and I'm excited to make this change. I actually just pulled these weeds from these containers of coneflower because I don't want whatever weeds these are to invade my garden. So that's just a little quick tip. Granted, there's probably weed seeds in here already, but if you can at least pull out some of the ones that you see, that should help a little bit.
That's not a weed seed.
This is not a weed. No, this is, you can see by the leaves, it is the same as these. Yep, it's another little shoot of coneflower. But anytime you see these, like this one, you can tell there's a bunch of them sprouting. So like I said, you're not going to be able to get all of them, but if you can just do a little bit of a cleanup on them, it will help a little. And I'm going to place these coneflowers in the same spot that I removed the others, which makes it really easy because I already have the hole there. So anytime that you can use an existing hole, it's great. So one's going here. And now these look small, but they will multiply and get a lot fuller in the next couple of years. And I'll go ahead and place the others and then we'll get them planted.
How about the Gomphrena?
Oh my gosh, this Gomphrena. Doesn't this look spectacular? I am obsessed with this annual. I have been growing it for 3 years. This was the first one that made me fall in love with it. This is the Atomic Purple Gomphrena by Baker Creek. And then last year I grew the Snow White, which I didn't like quite as much. And so I'm back to growing the Atomic Purple, and it is stunning. When I tell you that this is the most low fuss annual, it really is. It is drought tolerant. The bunnies and the deer don't touch it. I've only watered this about twice in the beginning of the season when I first planted out the seedlings, and it just blooms and blooms. And it is now mid-September and they look absolutely gorgeous. So if you're looking for a really easy, drought tolerant annual that is no fuss, grow some Gomphrena from seed. For one seed packet, you can get a huge drift like this that is really impactful. And look, in the fall, we're still blooming.
Hey, no slacking on the job.
I needed a break. It is so warm right now. It's getting warm. The sun's out, so I had to like take a break. That was a lot of work.
Yeah, it was like 10 to 12 plants.
It was 3 types of plants, 3, 3, and 4. So 10 plants altogether I got in the ground this morning. And it's not the planting that's tough. It's the pulling out the old plants that exerts a little bit more energy.
You're a mess.
I know, I'm filthy. I'm ready for a shower and a nap.
All right, we'll be back this afternoon.
Yeah. It's later in the evening, and I thought that I would go through and kind of show you how things turned out. So here is where I had those euonymus that I did not like, that the deer were chomping on, and I removed. I had all 3 planted here in a group just in front of the 2 AC units, which clearly these are not very pretty and something that I would rather not look at, but we all have these utilitarian parts of the garden. So what I did is I removed the euonymus and I went ahead and I planted 3 of these Midnight Sun Weigela. And I like that they're low growing and they're going to be pretty compact at only about 18 inches on average in height and in width. This bright red foliage I think also adds a really nice pop of color. And I have Weigela planted in another area of my garden and the deer do not touch it. So I'm hopeful that these will also be pretty deer resistant, which is very necessary in this part of the garden because the deer cruise by here pretty often. And here in my main walkway border is where I went ahead and I replaced some coneflowers. So I had some of the white swan coneflower that I had started from seed that reverted back to the Echinacea purpurea. And I went ahead and I replaced it with the pretty Parasols, which is a pink and white coneflower variety. Now I had a bigger space here, so I planted 2 in this spot. And as we go down the walkway, I planted 1 here where I removed another group. And then I placed the last one down here. So I ended up with 3 groupings down the walkway, and I can't wait until these start to fill out and grow. I think they're going to look really pretty. And here in my Japanese maple garden is where I removed all of the hosta and I replaced it with some of this Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia. And I really love the way that it turned out, and I think I'm going to be much happier with this plant in this space. So if you've been thinking about taking a plant out of your garden for a while but haven't had the heart to do it, I hope that this serves as a sign that it's your time to do that. Go ahead and take that out and replace it with something you'll like a lot more. And if it's something you've done before, go ahead and leave me a comment. Which plant did you take out? And if you're thinking about it, leave me that below as well, because I'm sure there are others who also have some plants that they're thinking about moving out of their garden. And the fall is the perfect time to get that done. So thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.